The third part, which is next Thursday and Friday for the CDO workshop that I'm doing, is the thing that makes many of you cry. Analysis. Statistics. Yes. Oh, listen, I have taught it so many times, and every time I teach it, one or two people in the class cry. Cry! Because students build it up, and they're so afraid of 2 + 2 = 4. So afraid that they're, and they failed it once, twice, 3 times. So finally, someone sent them to me and said, "If you go to Dr. Bird, he's easy, you'll pass." Not easy. So that third section then is all of the tools that we use to analyze data, because those are important in research. Now, all of you, I don't want all of you to become statisticians, then I won't have a job. I'm a statistician. I get good money when I'm paid to do statistics. But, you've got to have somebody working with you that feels comfortable. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to know enough about what's out there to say, can you do a chi-square for me? Can you do a correlation coefficient? Can you, and work with someone who is comfortable with SPSS or comfortable using numbers and how. That's not cheating. If they did the whole project for you, that's cheating. If they do the whole analysis for you and write it up, that's cheating. But to get professional help, working as colleagues, that is not cheating. That is collegial effort. And you should depend on that, because we all cannot be experts on everything. We just cannot. Even I cannot. As a matter of fact, if I'm doing a good research project, I want a good psychologist to work with me on measurement. Because I'm not an expert on measurement. I can do measurement, but I'm not an expert. I'm a good statistician and other things, but not that. So that's the third area then, is the analysis. And then finally the fourth area is the report writing, the article preparation, how do you do that, and all of that dressing part at the end of the research and what's expected. So those are the kind of the 4 areas that I cover research in. Just to let you know. Now, many of the questions that we've had today and the discussions have been about the first area rather than any of the other areas. Some of it had to do with the last area about publications and stuff. At the break, we had a discussion about a topic I guess I would call replication. I think it comes into play many times, not only here but other places. The extent to which an activity that looks like another activity is replication or plagiarism. Sometimes they can be mistaken. So do I take a document and I copy it and give it to you and say this is my research? Or have I taken the ideas here and replicated those ideas and come up with new data, new interpretations to either support or not support? Okay? So that was an issue we talked about, and that's something we probably have to discuss as well. All right, so I use this little analogy when I teach, whether I teach methods or whether I teach statistics, of a toolbox. And the students that come into my class often have had no research methods course and no statistics course. Maybe they know what a mean is, maybe they do, an average. Maybe they know what a median is, but I don't depend on it. They don't know much. They don't. They've heard some words, but they don't know much. So they're starting with a toolbox that's pretty empty. They don't have anything in it, And so one of the jobs I have in teaching those classes is to begin to give them some tools to put in their toolbox. So they need to know what the median is, and they need to know what the mean is, and they need to know what the mode is. Those are tools. They help us, we apply them to data, and they help us understand the data. And we can talk about it, we can paint a picture with it. We can talk to other people that there are more females in this class than there are males. The mode of this workshop is female. We talk about gender. If I got all of your ages, I could add them all up, divide by the number. I have the average age. If you throw me into that calculation, what happens to the average age? It goes way up, right? I'm called a unique case because I really pull the curve way up. So that's not a good idea. So if you got someone like me in the workshop, you would use the median, not the mean. See, this is what I would be teaching you. If you were, and I would be giving you those tools to go into your toolbox. Measurement. Talk about Likert scales, Gutman scales, ways of creating surveys, instrumentation that you might use. What happens as researchers, you continue to accumulate over your careers tools into your workbox. Every little experience that you have probably teaches you one or two new things. The likelihood is that when you begin to do research, you will have only 3 or 4 tools in your toolbox. And you will use those tools. Because you don't know anything else, you know? I go to fix a problem in my house back home. I have a hammer and a screwdriver and a wrench and a pair of pliers. And whatever the problem is, I fix it with those tools because that's all I have. But if I call a contractor, they bring all of their tools and they have 4 hammers and 5 screwdrivers and 20 wrenches, and they use the right thing on the right. That's the same way with research. When you begin and you have no tools, you use those same simple tools. It's okay. It's not great research, but it's okay. You can do it. Students do it, right? Students do it for you. They do a thesis. They do the thesis with whatever they know, but they don't know a lot of things. But at least it's a beginning. You teach them the structure. Then, the older you get, the more you get. Pretty soon you've got a big toolbox, and now you come to me. I can barely answer your question because I have too many tools. You know, I don't even know where to begin. And that's important. You know? So I use that analogy a lot. And then as we grow up, we get a bigger toolbox, and we have lots and lots of tools. We get those tools from doing research, but we also get it from reading research. We also get it from exposing ourselves, you know. And if you're taught this subject correctly, you would realize that you don't have to understand deeply everything. Now, I bet a lot of you look at an article, open up a journal article, and your eyes get watery and glass up, and because you see all this stuff there, and you say, what is going on? And you close the book, and that's it. Right? Well, if you were my students, I would try to convince you that you don't need to understand the details. Because if you understand the basic ideas of these things, you can interpret, you know, and then you can interpret enough at least to know what the results are and whether they're interesting to you. And if there are, and you want to understand it deeply, then you find somebody who doesn't tear up, who is more comfortable with reading it, and have them go over it with you. We do that. I still do that. I can come across articles that make me tear up. There are tools I don't know. I forget. You know, and that's just natural. It's normal. You can't be expert. So I approach teaching these classes to give the basic ability to know how to interpret and assess research material and results so you can make a decision about it. Not that you understand everything, because you won't. There are so many tools these days, and people use so many tools, so sophisticated. But when you realize the simplicity of the interpretation, you realize they're all the same. Analysis of variance, t-test, z-test, I don't care what you call it, test of significance are all the same logic. If the probability is small, there is a statistical difference. If the probability is not small, we cannot conclude that there's a statistical difference. And so I don't even care what the tool is. Once I know that, I can reach some conclusions about anything I'm reading, and that's the important thing. All right? Where do you learn to do research? Classes, workshop, of course, reading books and papers, and doing as much research as you can. Now, these days, with the internet, in Vietnam, it's a lot easier to expose yourself to research. You know, there's a wonderful site called Knowledge Base, and there are several textbooks, electronic textbooks free online. There are many sites. I have one syllabi where every topic I list 2 or 3 active internet sites. And in Vietnam, I virtually stopped using textbooks. I just use electronic databases, electronic materials. That way the students didn't have to worry about buying anything and they can get access to it. So these days, there's a lot. But, you know, they're boring. It's hard to read. I mean, if you can't go to sleep at night, pick up a stat book or a research methods book and you go to sleep just like that. In about 5 minutes. It's really, because the best way of learning this stuff is by doing it. It's in a context. So if I give all of you a problem right now and say, design me a piece of research, you will learn more from doing that than if I say, go home and read this textbook or read this paper. No. You really got to challenge yourself and try to do some of this stuff yourself, even though it's frustrating and difficult. Experience, huh? I told you, these were just guidelines. You have copies, right? So I don't have to read them all. Types of research. Basic. Some people in here maybe are involved in basic. The physicists might do basic research. The linguistic people probably don't do basic research. The social science people probably do not. You know, the scientists do basic research versus applied. I think these days the preference is, especially in Vietnam, application. Okay. Eventually there will be a need for the basic. So most of what you probably should be looking at is the application. Research that has implications for policy and changes, things like that. You have this, okay? I'm not going to read all these. And then I think these are 3, you know, there are, once again, there are many ways of looking at this material. I remember last night when I was at dinner, I was told to be careful because students here or faculty here who have been exposed or educated abroad come back here thinking that what they learn in Great Britain or Australia or United States or Germany, thinking that that is the one and only way to do things. It is not the one and only way to do things. Whatever you learned is only one of many different approaches to doing research. All right? It is one of the templates, but it is not the template. There is no the template. That's what the art of doing research is all about. What I really should do, and maybe during lunch I should think of a problem and come in and give it to you and ask you all to think about how you would design a piece of research to answer that question. Because I bet if I did that, I would get, how many here? 100 people? I would get 100 different answers. I could get 100 different answers. Every one of them being correct. Doesn't mean that some of them are right and some of them are wrong. There may be some right and some that's got some problems. But generally, I could get 100 different ways of approaching answering a question. And every way being okay. Some stronger than others. Some weaker than others. But you would design it based on what you think are your strengths, what the tools you know, the amount of resources you might have available, those kind of things. Okay? Hard to do because all of you are in different fields, so it's once again it's one of those difficult exercises. Generally, I look at research as three different things. Pure description, and we do a lot of description. When we want to know, for example, poverty rates, we want to know mortality rates, we want to know HIV/AIDS kinds of things. We have to do descriptive kinds of studies where sampling is very, very important because we're going to extrapolate from the sample to the population as a whole. And so descriptive studies, they just describe, we use our tools to paint a picture with the data so that people who read our reports understand what these people look like. The relational is more common, where we're trying to show that things are related to each other. And what was one of the most dramatic recent ones in Vietnam, the helmet laws, right? Wearing the helmets was related to the level of mortality in the country on the highways. No doubt about it. And once you collect the data and you look at it, it was clear that the year before the helmet law was enforced, there was high levels of mortality on the highways. Then during the year that it was enforced, the levels of mortality dropped. That's a relational study that verified with good evidence that in fact that policy was a good policy. Don't forget they tried to implement it twice. The first time it didn't work so well. The second time they got a little harder and now it's working. All right? So we do that. We do a lot of relational studies on a lot of different kinds of things, you know. And especially in education, we try to understand, how do we optimize student learning? How do we optimize it? Is it really better to have a student-centered classroom than a faculty-centered classroom? Does anyone in here know the answer to that? How would you discover the answer? You'd have to look at lots of research. You'd have to try to find who has looked at that question, and you'd have to ask, what is the evidence that's been accumulated? Now, you know, some of us have beliefs. Some of us, I believe, that a student-centered classroom is better, produces better student learning than a faculty-centered classroom. But you know what? I don't have any strong evidence. What do I mean by strong evidence? I mean 10 or 15 or 20 really good studies where the evidence really supports that conclusion. You know, so this is a matter of degree. Research is a matter of degree. I'm never convinced of anything based on one study. Never convinced of anything based on one study. Never convinced of anything based on 5 studies. And if those 5 studies end up having different results, that's it. I'm finished. I mean, there's nothing going on here. You know, 2 of them are positive, 2 of them are negative. What's going on? You know. So you know, it's a matter of building confidence in all of us. We read things, we do things, we take this evidence, and finally we say, aha! I have pretty good confidence that this is the right thing to do. I have a fairly good confidence that if you want to make an impact on cancer, then you ought to eat this kind of a diet. You know, that's what life is all about. That's what we're doing. That's what knowledge is all about. And it's evaluation of these research findings. The last one is more difficult, but unfortunately many people in Vietnam throw it into the batch. You cannot say cause with such ease. Demonstrating causality is such a difficult, challenging task. It requires so many unique kinds of things and evidence And yet people very casually begin to say, this causes that, A causes B. We took a long time before we could associate smoking as causing lung cancer. Still, people are careful about saying smoking causes lung cancer. We know that people who smoke have a higher rate of lung cancer than people who don't smoke. But we don't really know the causality. We can't clearly demonstrate the causality because it's a hard subject to put into a kind of design that leads us to a set of evidence that's so convincing. You understand that sometimes we simply don't have the capability to design such strong research to reach those kind of conclusions. And so we have to accumulate other kinds of research, and based on those kinds of research, we reach some level of confidence or some level of conclusion, even if it's not fully supported. I believe that cigarette smoking causes lung cancer. I believe. You understand the word? I believe. Not that I can demonstrate it, not that I can show you a set of research results that will convince you of the same conclusion. But we don't have to. Just knowing that they're related, the second one, is good enough for us, it's good enough for public health policy, and it's good enough to tell you if you're smoking, you better stop. Got it?
Yes.
You tired of hearing me? What time is it? Finish the one whole slide.